are back, not with a video that anyone is expecting, because my previous videos from the renovation was empty house. Now I'm moved in. However, I'm really not ready to show anybody the state which is this house at this moment in time. If you're new here, welcome, and if you are returning, thank you and welcome back. In my previous videos, just for reference, and if anyone wants to go and watch them back, I've recently bought a house. I say recently, it was back in July now. If you'd like to go and watch them, I will leave the links down below. Today I'm going to be explaining my story in property and my plans, I guess, for the future in terms of my own investments and that kind of thing. If you are new here, I've bought a house which I've been renovating and sharing my journey, and basically I've only just moved in the last month and there's a lot to sort out. So before I can actually show you how the house looks, I figured I would do a little interim video to tell you how I managed to get onto the property ladder fairly early in my 20s and what my plans are going forwards. New hair, I've got bangs and I can't quite figure them out. I've had them for a while actually. They're not banging, you know what I mean? They're not quite there. I haven't figured it out yet, but here we go. It's no new thing to see me messing with my hair throughout these videos anyway, so we'll just keep with the theme. I thought everything from the move-in process would be really easy and smooth and that would be the easy part. No, I was wrong. This has been the hardest part in terms of getting everything to have a place and finding an organised way to live in this new house. Granted, it's smaller than the house that I've moved from, so there's less storage, it's smaller, everything, you know, the garden I can't use yet because you've seen the garden, and if you haven't, go and see it from the last videos because it's like a jungle and it's basically not habitable for even a shed just to shove things in. So that'll be for another video. A little disclaimer, I am no property expert. This is just my own journey and experiences and things, hints, tips that I think will help people who are wanting to get onto the property ladder, especially in the UK. And this is my story. So I hope you enjoy. Let's get into it. This isn't my first property and that might be a surprise to some people. I haven't spoke about my other property before. So let's rewind back to 2019. The house market was very different compared to what it is at the moment or what it has been during COVID times too, where I bought my first property, actually in my hometown where I grew up. 2019, pre-COVID, properties were peanuts, let's be honest, compared to what they are now. And I was in a really good position to be able to buy at that time because houses were so cheap. So in 2019, I was, how old was I? At the time of buying the house, I would have been 20 years old in the April of 2019. And I bought in my hometown in Rosendale, if anyone is familiar with the area. The property that I bought was a 2-bedroom end of terrace house. It had a cute little garden on the front. Yes! Yes! My scaffolding's being taken down. I have been waiting for this moment for possibly 4 months for it to be taken down, and I've rang, I've tried, he's come here and not been able to take it down, and finally they're like monkeys climbing it up to get to the top to demolish it. And that is perfect now because it's going, but I'm also trying to film this. If we rewind even further, I know that some people watching this video might be like, oh, well, that money must have been inherited, it might have come from parents or whoever. No, hun. That is absolutely not the case. Everything that I have got today is from working through and through since I was 14 years old and saving my money since then, essentially, is how I've got to where I am. I am really fortunate. I will admit that I've had a lot of opportunities which have helped me along the way. I am definitely not the kind of person who has had a silver spoon in their mouth. Everything that I've had, I have worked my freaking butt off for. I grew up with that perception that I knew that I would have to work for what I wanted. And it was actually my mum who inspired me from a young age to figure out the property world. Basically, she bought her second property when I was about 15, something like that, which was her first rental property that she rented out. And I was with her for, I mean, not that I did any of the renovation with her, but I was there, I saw it all, I was taking it all in of what she was doing, and I was like, I've got to do the same. There's literally, that was my aim from then, that I needed to be on this property pathway because it's easy money. If you have the money to spend on your deposit, solicitors, etc., then you're going to make it all back from your rent. At that moment in time, I was like, yes, I have to do this, and that was my mission. Ever since I bought my car, I was like, right, I'm going to save for a house, and that's essentially what I did. I got the keys for my first house, which I bought on a residential mortgage. April 2019 was a very different place for properties and buying properties at that time compared to now. I managed to get an offer accepted on a little end of terrace house, so 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a little garden at the front and a little yard at the back. I was going to do everything possible to be able to buy a house. I had saved and saved and saved for literally years. So since I bought my car when I was 17, I saved and saved and saved until I was 20, and that's when I bought the house. It took a long time. I was on Rightmove every day for months trying to find what was, number one, affordable and what would work for what I wanted. And to be fair, I didn't have any preferences in terms of what I wanted the house to be, how many bedrooms it had, etc. I just knew that I wanted to be on the ladder. I did a lot of research into how I was going to get there. I got myself a mortgage advisor, which was so helpful. She was absolutely amazing in that whole first, what I needed to know, what I needed to do, everything. She was absolutely brilliant. So if you are getting into property for the first time, get yourself a mortgage advisor because they are absolutely invaluable. Who is this? Hello? Okay. Monday would be fine, yeah. I can't remember what I just said. It was on the market for 50 or offers over 55, and at that time you could also negotiate with the prices, which is what I did, and I got myself a bargain. So I basically paid my deposit, which as a first time buyer with a Help to Buy ISA was only 5%, which is very small as a deposit on a house. That being said, I put 10% down. The rest of it was, of course, on a mortgage. The house actually didn't need anything doing to it. Touch wood, it still doesn't. Basically, it was ready to move in at that time. However, I actually ended up never living in that house, just for circumstantial reasons. I'd owned the property for over 6 months, and I contacted my mortgage provider and told them the situation, that I was at uni at the time, I wasn't going to be living in the house, and I asked them what the avenues were in terms of making this property an investment property and renting it out, which is what it is today. So I actually never lived in that property. I never had to do anything to it other than buy it. A property with consent to let, so where you ask your mortgage provider to allow the property to be rented out to other people, still under a residential mortgage but with their permission to rent it out. So that's what I did. There is a fee involved with that, of course, but it is so much more worthwhile than converting that property into a buy-to-let mortgage, which involves having to remortgage it, put a new deposit of 25% of the property value, which I didn't have at the time, and I didn't want to do that either. So the way that it worked out is very, very beneficial for me. So then I, of course, was at university for that time while that property was being let out, and I was in student accommodation, and then I moved into a rental in Chester, which is where I went to university. So I was there for a period of four years until I bought this house that I'm in currently last July. It then took me, of course, from when I was 20 up until 24, which is how old I am now, to save the deposit for this house that I'm in, which was significantly more than what I had paid for my first property. So it took me a long time to save that money up. In the interim of me buying my first house and pushing more towards closer to when I bought this house, in that interim period, I was obsessed with wanting to buy my next house, and that's when I was looking for me. So I had a lot of wants and needs of what I wanted in my house, what I wanted it to be, etc., etc., as we all do, which is natural. However, I actually ended up being in a massive pickle. So I found two houses that I was obsessed with. They were both everything that I wanted them to be. One of them needed a lot more renovation than the other, but they were significantly more expensive than what I've paid for this house. Like, I'm talking almost double. I actually ended up having two offers accepted on two different properties and not being able to afford either of them. I'm going to blame the banks for that one because they completely misled me in terms of what I could afford on a mortgage, etc. So when I decided, do you know what, I have too many wants and needs in a property that I want to live in myself, that's when I decided I was going to go down the investment route. I had a lot of struggles with this second property, and I will explain. My plan was to buy this property with the intent of it being an investment property. However, that didn't work out on paper at all. If you are looking at property investing as a limited company rather than as an individual person, if you have been looking into getting onto the property ladder and investing, that might have been something that people have told you to do, to go into a limited company, because there's much more benefits from a tax point of view in doing that. However, I have tried this, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, because it is absolutely more beneficial to do that if you want to earn money from property. However, I had a real struggle when it came to this property. So my intention for this property was to have it as an investment property. I was going to continue to live in my rental at the time and have this as an investment to continue to earn more money monthly. However, it's proven really difficult to get a mortgage for businesses. The interest rates rocket up sky high, and obviously at the time of me purchasing this property, the market was also still very elevated. Everyone was going crazy to buy at the time, and that meant it was proving difficult for me to prove my affordability for buying the house. So I decided to go down the mainstream way of buying it on a residential mortgage. I went with my mortgage provider on the first property because otherwise other mortgage providers wouldn't have allowed me to buy another residential property because I already have a residential property with consent to let. So I ended up going with my same mortgage provider, which have actually served me really well. It makes everything easy, everything's in one place, and it means that I get the benefit of having a lower interest rate on the first property and the second property as well, because it's as a residential, not as a business. And of course, it means that I don't have to pay rent anymore, and everything that I am paying is going towards my own investment and benefits at the end of the day, because it's something that I own rather than paying somebody else's mortgage. That being said, I believe everything happens for a reason, because if I didn't decide I was going to move into this house after I had the issues with trying to get a mortgage as a business, not being successful, I decided, what the heck, I'm just going to move in. It makes sense, I don't want to pay rent anymore, and it's given me another property, and I'm one step closer to becoming financially free, which is the end goal for me anyway. So since I decided I was going to be living here myself, I wanted it to be my home and I wanted to renovate it to what I wanted, because I got way overexcited, and well, not that that's an issue, but I wanted to make it my own, and I think everybody would as well. So that's why I've gone with the whole process and renovated every single room of this house. How I afforded to do that was, of course, I had a little bit of a pot of savings left, and from my first property I had some equity in the house itself, and of course since pre-COVID times that house has gone up in value significantly, and that was how I've afforded to pay for my renovation. So actually buying that property, not only has it given me a monthly income, it's also added value to what is this property now, and I cannot wait for the valuation of this property because I've done so much to it. So if it doesn't come above what I paid for it, then there's going to be a big issue. But we're not there yet, so that's for a later date. Of course, I've had a lot of unexpected spends as well within this house, i.e. the roof. That was something that I 100% didn't see coming at all, and that was actually being the biggest spender of this house to date, because the whole roof needed to be redone, and roofs are very expensive. I am very glad I decided to move into this house as my own home though, because although it's come with its financial aches, everything happens for a reason, and I genuinely believe that is the case with this house, because when I decided I was gonna move into this house, I was working in Liverpool, which was a bit of a commute anyway from where I was working, but with the extra distance of it was like 30 minutes extra onto travelling time, I thought that that was going to be a lot, and I was 100% right. So I just did a quick Google search, and I was like, jobs within the area that I'm living in, North Wales, and I found my dream job. And I haven't actually explained to anybody on this, so unless you know me from my Instagram, you won't know. I'm actually a dietitian as my day job, and my dream job, which is the one that I'm talking about, is lecturing in nutrition and dietetics. Everything happens for a reason, and I genuinely believe that this was the best decision in terms of buying this house, but also living in it, because I wouldn't have had that opportunity to upskill and excel in my career if I didn't decide to move. So everything happens for a reason is the moral of that story. I've spent a lot of money on this house in terms of making it what I want for me. And for the next few years, I think I'm gonna be here, settled in my own little space and enjoy the fruits of my labour. Why not at the end of the day? And continue to save for my next property. I think this house would be a really, really good little rental. It's super close to town. Everything that I need at the moment is within walking distance, whether that's the gym, whether that's shopping, the town centre, transport links, everything is really, really close by. So this for a rental house is perfect. I'm going to consider then either turning it into a buy-to-let property or considering consent to let, because that's really worked super well for me in the past, and it's significantly less money involved compared to a buy-to-let property too. But it also means that I can earn money from this property whilst I move on to bigger and better things, essentially. So I have had a lot of thoughts into what I want to do in the future with my property investment journey, because it definitely does not stop here for me. I want to have as many properties as humanly possible. So that is it from me for today, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed my little story time of my property journeys and where I am within my property journey at the moment. For those of you that have been following along from my actual renovation process, I really appreciate you coming back and hearing this and where I've come from, because like I said, this is my second property and a lot of you won't know that. So I hope this has helped, and for any of you that are aspiring property investors, as I am myself, I hope that we can learn together and get all of this experience and knowledge under our belts in terms of how we can progress our property careers for future financial freedom. If you liked what you saw today, please give me a nice big thumbs up, a little cheeky subscribe as well if you feel me. If you want to, of course, no pressure. I hope you enjoyed. See you next time. Should I be glad? Favoritism ain't my thing, but I'll be glad to make an exception. Whoa.